Let's open the meeting today at 4:09. And
Is Peter doing minutes?
actually, Peter is now detained in the media room. Could somebody else do minutes?
I've been doing them a lot.
I know you
Doing
have.
a great
You just
job.
did them. You did a great job.
Who has computer?
Yeah.
Ah, well, what we can do is, with a little luck, we're going to record this. And we can, Abby, would you mind taking notes?
I can take them, but I have to leave at 5, so.
Oh, that's
Even
not
better.
really too good. That's not too good.
Abby, if you take them until 5, I'll pick up any slack afterwards.
Okay, I'll email it to you later tonight.
Perfect. I knew we could figure this out.
Assuming my battery doesn't die, but it should be okay.
I've got a plug, but not for an apple.
Mary Ann, just so you know, you are on the top, you're just very small.
Thank you.
So don't feel disoriented.
I'll just look at the group this way. All right. So just a quick announcement before we get started. We have a pretty packed agenda today to try to get our updates done. I'm not sure, has everybody met our new planner,
Hi.
Matt James?
I haven't, I'm Tim Tier.
I'm Ken Emick.
Rose Price, but you already knew that.
And Jay
Nancy West.
Howie Marshall.
and Abby.
And Abby?
Another member of the committee.
Just a really interested community member, which is really great. Because she goes to a lot of committee meetings. And then we have Mr. Ironman, our retiring town planner, consultant on the big screen. Just a quick announcement. I sent it around. We got the results the beginning of August, which I sent around that the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund grant, we were not selected this time. However, it was a long shot, and it'll be. We kind of got a sense of they were really big projects that were selected, and we have this all set to go for the next time. And we don't have to only go for GoPIF. We can look for other construction grants as they come along.
I was thinking that maybe they learned from the volume of proposals and the kinds of proposals, maybe they learned what towns really need to have.
And they were really geared around the flooding that had happened in January, which they said it was. It was kind of a help for that type of thing.
It did. It seemed like they were either the real big tickets for like Portland and big cities, or they were culvert, which was the title of it.
Yeah.
So it seemed like.
It seemed that's what they
I
were
got
looking for.
preference, I think.
And Ken, you and I tried to tailor it around that a little bit, but wasn't quite the same as the issues that got chosen.
Didn't actually, we couldn't repeatedly use the word culvert 50 times.
So,
It was a great product, though. I mean, what you submitted. Well done.
yeah, yeah.
Not wasted.
So
Hopefully we get a chance to recycle at least part of it.
I think we will, you know. Okay, so the sustainability plan, it's time for us to renew the two-year community actions that we had set forth in the past. At the last meeting, we basically, Jay did a wonderful job of kind of laying out everything we talked about at the last meeting. And it really was helpful, Jay, for me to start figuring out where to pick up from here. I'm trying to, well, I should look at the minutes. Who was not here? Tim, you weren't here.
I wasn't here.
And Nancy, you weren't here.
Should we approve minutes from last meeting?
Yeah, that might be a good idea. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Mose and Ken seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So to pick up the discussion, which I did, which I think everybody and myself hopefully has a copy, I printed out I basically took everything that was completed or working, what we were working on that we want to continue to work on in blue, I basically, this is set up, we have the strategic areas from A to H, I think it is. And I basically just grabbed those, plopped in what we were working on in those areas. And those are in blue. And I have been getting some suggestions of what we might work on going forward. And those I've sort of put in orange and thought that, and then Mark sent a number of items yesterday, which I put in there. And I thought that might be a good way for us to start working through the process and figure out what we want to do. Peter needs a chair. He's going to walk out on me, I think. All right. So if we start in the beginning with the first strategy, which was embrace the future of transportation, it has come up that we will find now with more frequent storms that we might find other roads in town that are susceptible, public roads that are susceptible to sea level rise. Peter, there's a worksheet there if you want to use it.
Oh, thank you.
Is there an extra?
Anyone else?
Yeah. Which Mark put in here. For example, the first one is to undertake preliminary road studies for newly identified town roads. We have a new updated flood map now that was, and we haven't put any of that with the history that we had been working from. So that is probably a good area for us to start looking at and maybe adding some roads to it, depending on that. We also found out that most of the areas that we had been studying for the last 6 years were either bridges or culverts on town roads. And we found out in the January storm that the area on Bethel Point Road between the bridge and the end of the road was flooded. So it came up at one of the public meetings that we might make this a citizens project. If there's people who are can start photographing flooding on their own road and documenting it, we could start building the information that we need. We have been doing this with members at those locations, but I think if people would be I would think more than willing to do that, to start to, because we have to then create a history. Mose?
Did you read the article in the paper yesterday about the new wider culverts some guy's been working on with other towns in the state in place? And that they have found that the ones that they did are both better for the habitat, the wildlife, because they can traverse easier, and it also has reduced storm damage. So none of them were damaged when others were.
Right.
Because they're wider, and I suppose it'll maybe a little bit lower. I'm not sure what.
Well, there are different, I think they might be referring to the new state coastwise culvert.
I don't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah.
But it's something that they just put a bunch of them in a few years ago, and they have stood up well, apparently. So
Right.
maybe the kind of thing that, as we start talking about culvert replacement, we may need to get to that, and maybe the state will even do some grant funding for some of that kind of work.
I'm sure they will. And the coastwise, there was a Stream Smart program, which was to enlarge culverts on freshwater streams. However, they didn't really take into and correct the cross current that you get in a coastal situation. And there is a new program that was introduced by the state called Coastwise. They're offering training to contractors and engineers, I believe, to give them the thinking of how they should be thinking about culverts or stream crossings in coastal areas. But that sounds like a good article. I'd like to, if you know where it was, I'd
It
enjoy
was, I
reading.
forget which section it was in, probably in the state and local section, and then probably the B section in the Portland paper.
In the Portland Press? I'll check it.
Yeah, Press Herald.
Okay.
May have been the front section, I just don't
Yeah.
remember.
So Mary Ann, the citizen project, is that something that would be written in here as a,
Yeah, I think I put something in down at under the third item in orange. And that would be working with, we're finding that private roads, oh, I'm sorry, let's go back to that, the citizen project. I think we would probably, between the Conservation Commission, because we've been following roads, and town lands perhaps, we have the database already set up and the ability to upload data to that. We should think about a way of how to coalesce the people that would be doing that and give information, because it would be a case in the beginning, I think, of really creating a history so that we know that we can go back to, just as we have done with what we've done so far.
With signpost pictures, right?
Yeah, and we've learned, as long as you know where to stand,
Yeah, fine.
you put an X, marks the spot, and you stand in the same place and take your picture each time you have a high tide, and it happens, that is close enough for the record.
so maybe if a pilot is a good idea, maybe Bethel Point.
Yeah?
There's actually a former town lands member that lives right in that area.
Oh, really?
Reach
Yeah.
out to him and see if he's interested.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be a good place to start, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know who it was who spoke. It was a woman who spoke at the public meeting, but those two.
There were
Who
lots.
knows, maybe.
Yeah, it seemed like there were lots of people obviously
From
from
there.
Bethel Point
Yeah.
who were saying that there was this flooding.
Yeah.
So the other thing I think knew that when we set this up, we might have a little new criteria. It would be good to know when they flood, how long they stay flooded. Because I think we're finding a lot of, it's not the kind of flooding you get in Portland, for example, where the water, other than the end of Garrison Cove Road, that the water sits there for a month after it flows. It usually is there for a half hour or an hour, but I think that would be a good measurement to have.
And that wasn't a January storm. It was between the culvert and the, in a sense, landing. It was inaccessible or just, looking like a half inch?
No, I think they were concerned about the road being so flooded that it was inaccessible.
Was
It's a fairly low
inaccessible.
spot in the road.
Yeah,
Okay, just one spot.
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's a tiny round culvert underneath it, and it drains from little ponds, preserve across into the tip of Hen Cove.
Okay.
But there's just a conventional, old-fashioned, yay
What,
big
12
culvert
inches,
there.
so,
Yeah.
And the concern was, because it was a meeting about Abner Point, and Bethel Point, and the third, and the comment was, what about people on those roads who aren't, or any road that isn't what you're focused on? What do we do? So I think a citizen initiative's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Do some tracking.
So that we can put that as one of our ways to do that.
Are you thinking that would come from a coalition of Conservation Commission and Lands Committee, or just Conservation Commission as part of the, who do you want to have lead that?
Why don't we talk about it here, and then we might be able to figure out how to disperse it between the three, depending on, if it looks like we're going to need to go for a grant or something to put this in. I don't know that we will, but I think it might be a good idea for us to make a note to have a group of people who are interested in this to get together offline and bring it to one of our meetings in the fall.
Yeah.
So a subcommittee.
Yeah. A subgroup. I don't know that we can call it a committee.
Quick question. What is PL and J?
Peter Lieberman and Jay.
Oh.
PL and J?
Yeah, I had to think about it for a long
Hey,
time.
Conservation Commission working on PL and J.
Sounds like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
Did I write that? Where did that write? Oh, PL and J, that's Jay McCree.
Well, I figured that
And
was.
PL is Peter.
Oh,
Nice to meet you.
okay. Do you go by PL or?
No,
Okay, I'm just,
Peter Leavenworth has so many letters, it's too tiresome to type, so people do Peter.
oh, okay.
He's got a long name.
I think it's a new railroad,
Yeah,
I
it's
like
just,
it.
it's
the PL and
A
J.
new monopoly space.
Yeah.
a new monopoly, yeah.
All right.
Right next to free parking.
Okay, so we've gotten through the first one, and then the second one has to do with wharves and docks and town landings. And I don't know, Ken, if there's other areas that town land's been talking about that are at issue, as Garrison Cove and Abner Point. And
I wouldn't say at this point, that in terms of flooding, no. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about other maintenance issues, but.
So, I mean, so that would be something else that we could carry over into that, if that was an issue, or if it becomes an issue.
I just have a question, and it's only the contemplation, watching the news yesterday and images of Connecticut, where they received 10 inches of rain overnight. And, you hear these things in the South all the time, but I wonder, I don't have any idea what would happen should we not, I know we talk about sea level rise, and we talk about storm surge and all that sort of stuff, but, there's high wind, but then there's also massive rain and the combination. I just don't know if that makes other roads that we haven't previously contemplated or other access points more vulnerable. I don't initially know of them, but it would have to do with other freshwater waterways and whether they might have a difference. And I don't know if we've assessed that at all, but it is an issue.
But pretty much I think any place that they have limited drainage would
Yeah.
subject to that.
But I wonder if that couldn't be folded into the citizen science project, since we don't have the history, at least as far as I know, and we don't have the history of where that might have an effect. But
Yeah.
if we have people telling us where, with a 6-inch rainfall in 2 hours, it's having an effect, then that could easily be folded into this other new project.
And perhaps when we're talking about this with the public, we will not be so specific of where the water is originating from, but more how it's affecting the usability of your road and the maintenance of your road might be a way.
Or I think the other thing is, does it cause washout? I mean, other damage or damages.
Yeah.
We've seen that with recent repairs to the Graveyard Point landing. They finally got it fixed after the January storms, and 2 days later, it washed out and it was almost back where we started
Yeah,
And there's runoff into waters as well.
in the quality.
yeah. So that's
So
a,
one other thing about other kinds of changes, so, not to jump ahead to private roads, but I live on a private road that hasn't frozen in 2 or 3 years, which means by the spring, everything is a sloggy mess, which has meant we've had to spend a bunch more money this year to make a more, put down a lot more gravel so it can withstand this kind of thing. So,
Yep, that's consistent with our area as well.
Mary Ann, this is
yes,
Mark.
yes, Mark?
The issue of culverts is one that you might want to add an activity to essentially inventory and evaluate the culverts. And I think of, for instance, the state culvert on 24, where the drainage for the new subdivision goes under the road. And there are, stormwater provisions to minimize the flow to those culverts. But the state, I think those culverts are about at capacity. Now, they're a state responsibility, but I'm guessing there are other culverts on town roads that may be should be looked at and to see whether, as improvements on those roads occur, whether there's a need to upgrade culverts, both in terms of the size of them and also the ability to pass things through them like animals and.
Right. Yeah, we could put that in under the same area. We can add that, if everybody thinks that, we'll go with that.
Marianne, can I make a comment about transportation?
Sure.
One of the lessons I got from the grant proposals that you guys wrote for the main road
Yeah,
thing is that in Harpswell, transportation also includes water. And the town landings, in my mind, are a fundamental part of transportation for the people who work on the water. And so I think about the town dock over on the neck
That's the point, yeah.
that got wiped out. I don't think the state thinks about landings as transportation, but in this town, I think they're really important for people to be able to get to work and to be able to do their work. So I don't know how to weave this in, but watermen can't, or water people can't get to work, or they can't put their boat in the water to be able to work if we don't have town landings in place.
that's very good. I think that's a really good point. We're always trying to figure out what we can do to help the working waterfront and the working community. We can't spend Monday on private industry, but these are ways that we can be supportive and perhaps helpful.
So I just want to expand the idea of transportation. In this town, that
I think it's a good
includes
idea.
water access.
That's a good addition.
Marianne, if using your worksheet, if you go to strategy area A, the second bullet starts to address that issue in terms of at least town wards, docks, and
Right,
launches.
yeah, so we can,
It includes them under transportation.
right. But I like the idea of really calling out the difference between roads and water-related,
Yeah, transportation.
yeah, as part of transportation, yeah.
It's a good addition, because we've talked a lot about roads to get to
Right,
the work and making sure people can get to work. But it's also emergency service, which has come up lately.
How does DOT perceive it?
I'm sorry?
How does Department of Transportation perceive wharfs? Because I'm just wondering if, if there's, for example, you go for a state grant, we argue that, I mean, it's a great argument, but DOT could just say, well, we don't see it that way.
In which case, maybe we need to open their eyes.
Correct?
There's still the distinction between private and commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's a real hangup for what happened here in Harpswell.
But, for example, and this has to do with roads, that grant that we applied for was open to private road associations. So it was open to private road associations that were official to apply for funding.
Now, I didn't see any getting awarded.
No, but it was open to them. And many times, I've read them in other ones. So that points out that, it's a fine line. So it'd be kind of nice for us to be prepared to funnel that in areas where it could be applied to, in this case, perhaps private wharf owners. I mean, I don't know. But,
Marianne, what was the grant again that private road associations would be eligible for?
the one I just talked about, the one that we just lost, Maine DOT.
You mentioned the culvert storm thing.
Yeah, it was the Maine, I always forget the name of
Tell
it.
you. Hang on.
That's okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Yeah,
It was DOT, like saying, and their focus was, I think, culvert, I know it was.
it was culverts, yeah.
And I think, Tim's question, I think DOT does have recognition of town-owned as opposed to non-town.
Yeah,
It was the main infrastructure adaptation fund.
right. And it was being administered by Maine DOT. I think the state wanted, the state wanted to get money to private and town people. That particular fund had all the infrastructure set up to administer it because they had just closed the one that we applied for on July 1st, there was one earlier. In reading, they talked about it being kind of it was just the entity they used to get the job done. Yeah. And those are going to come up in the future, it's just that we have to be attuned to reading into them and being ready. Okay, so moving along. The third one, which was undertake a program to assist in the creation of private road associations. This has come up in the past. As I said in here, the Conservation Commission has talked about this. Jay has talked about it with her road association and Peter and his. And we're thinking about having some type of a two-way conversation and interchange here again to get homeowners. We had a program that we gave a few years ago, how easy it is to set up a statutory road association. I'm going to look into this. I went to a program up in one of the Lakes region, 10 years ago, where they had somebody come in from the state. He gave a half-a-day seminar on this and talked about it in detail with private homeowners and talked a lot about the state statutory road association, what's in place and how legal it is and how easy and cheap to put together because you don't need a lawyer. We could do something like that, which we talked about. And we've also talked about using the private road associations, if we knew who they were, to help us dispense information that we're trying to get out, whether it's about a program on drinking water or whatever we're trying to reach people with. We're thinking about it sort of a two-way street, but we got to find out who they are first. And as everybody's learned, you cannot go anywhere to get a list of road associations, even at the state level. It has to come from them. So it would be us reaching out and people replying. And one might be to do it is to have a program, like we've had in the past, on that. And
Well, now there's concrete incentive for people to form a road association, and that they'll be eligible to apply for grants
periodically, yeah,
to
Yeah.
upgrade their roads.
that's right.
And we've all learned that roads are vulnerable now.
And we did have a webinar in the past also on how to maintain your private road, which I think the people that attended found it very informative.
And where was that?
Cumberland County Soil and Water Commission,
Okay, that would be a really good one
yeah.
to do.
And the problem is their funding isn't so great anymore, so they can't do it for free anymore. Tim?
You know, it would, we've talked about this a couple of times, but we don't seem to know who all the road associations are. We do know there are lots of private roads. We talk about doing assessments of culverts and all that sort of stuff, but it seems like we need a kind of a basic assessment of the roads in the town, if we don't already have it. Which ones have road associations and which ones don't? Because when I read this, I thought, okay, we're going to undertake a program to assist in the creation of private road associations, but I guess I don't personally know, is that the top priority, or are the vast majority of roads already in road associations? You're saying no, we don't know, but so which is more important for us to do? Focus on creation of new ones or making sure that existing ones actually have the resources that they need, or that they're even aware that these other resources are available? And I would think You know, as a first blush, it might be good just to know, where are we on which is the bigger priority? And the second one would be, if we knew that, the easier end is to work with existing associations, so then you know what to get them. So then you can point to things that are working to further incentivize people to create them if they don't have them, so.
Well, I think you need some incentive to get people to say we're a road association. So you offer something.
Peter, you had.
So a couple of things on that. I think it's all of the above, really. And I think when we're talking about creating road associations, I guess I would say that every place there's a private road where a couple people live on it and go on it during the winter, there's some form of road association because they decide who's going to pay for the plowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are road associations.
Right.
What we're talking about here, I think, is moving them along towards statutory road associations, because that gives, a little bit more institution to the process. And I completely agree that we need to find out who they are. One of the things, I'm president of our road association for a couple of years now. We have a great road commissioner, but we don't know everything, so the first thing we do is look around for somebody else who maybe knows more than we do or whatnot. So I think facilitating cross-communication as well as being able to share information from the state, the town, or whatever that would be helpful would be, received by most with open arms.
Mose?
I think there is some impetus too from the mortgage lenders pushed by the government, because when it's a private road, they want to know that there is some kind of association to maintain the road so it doesn't disintegrate. And it doesn't have to be formally authorized and recorded or anything, but you have to have some evidence when you borrow money on a private road now to buy a house
Oh,
or
really?
build a house, that there is some organizational structure that's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
So as new people keep moving in, they're going to be talking about that with their neighbors and trying to get some kind of organization. And I've shown a number of houses where somebody down the road has always plowed it, so they always use him. But if he dies, moves away or whatever, then there's nobody, and there's no organization in place to deal with it. So I think it's a good move on the lender's side, but I think it's also going to make more people aware of the fact that you just can't drive up and down the road and not maintain it every year.
And I think the other thing that is always, I live on a very small road. We don't have a statutory road association. It's
That's
what
the
you
thing,
said.
There's no registry, and that's the other part of the problem. There should be, but that's going to have to come in the next step or two, to get them registered and recorded someplace so everybody knows
Well,
there's one.
yeah, and in the state, it's really complicated. We spent a lot of time a number of years ago trying to figure out how to do this on the Conservation Commission. And the state, many people think it's too important, too expensive, so they just have something informal. It gets down to where you're looking for some monetary relief, whether it's a loan or a grant. The grantor of the money wants somebody who's going to be responsible for paying it back, or completing the project. And that's where the statutory road association comes in.
Insurance also, we're hearing more that insurers want to know there's a road
Right.
association. So that's another
Yeah.
incentive. Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Just mechanically, can we number, like 1, 2, 3?
Sure. I was just
Okay.
trying to follow what we had.
Yeah.
But we can, as long as we can number, keep the letters,
Yes.
but the
Yeah.
number's fine.
Number under the letters.
Sure.
So when you say the third one, I know you mean number 3.
Okay.
Don't let your imagination.
And then Mark had his other numbers, so, but,
Just
all right.
in the interest of one other, I keep thinking, where does one go to find this information if it seems to be lost? But I wonder, for real estate agents that have worked in the Harpswell region for a long time and have sold a lot of houses, I bet you they have a pretty good understanding of when houses go for sale, which ones are in road associations, which ones aren't, because that's often part of the negotiation.
It's shown right on the like on the Zillow listing. It says whether there's a road association or not.
So it seems to me there should be ways that we could figure it out. And so my question is, should we have a task that's associated with some kind of assessment that says, where is this information, can we find it, and who might do it? I mean, it could be a school project. It doesn't have to be us. It could be, I mean, it could be us, like a citizen science project. It could be just something we say, the town doesn't have this. It would be helpful if we did. There are ways to do it. Who can help us, kind of thing.
You could also, this is different, but for the state level, you could also have a law that says the state needs to keep track of the statutory ones. They wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah, they wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah.
But I called and said, these are nonprofit, they can give you a list of nonprofits, but they can't split it. So I think that would be a legislative thing if you want.
I think to your point is, these are private roads that the towns can't spend any money on. How much, I don't know how to put this. I can see reaching out in a general way and asking people to reply to us, but how much effort do we as a committee want to put into doing all the checking and needing to be done to still find out that perhaps we still have to go to people?
So I think that, I think the idea of like reaching out to real estate agents is a great idea. I also think that it kind of has to be opt-in, and it's like anything else we communicate with the town, we probably have to figure out a blast, who's on, put a form up someplace, send it out on Facebook, send it out, on the town email list, all that kind of business. Have people repost the Facebook thing and see what you get. My experience also is, there are probably some road associations who have a very strong definition of private. And you give them the opportunity to opt in and they'll say, no, thank you. And we can't, do anything about that. That's great, knock yourself out. But for those who do, and for those who do, that would work. The other thing I want to, now that I'm blabbing, so we've talked about this a lot at this meeting. I don't know how often you've talked about it in the Conservation Commission. It seems like a few of us, if we could just go off as a work group, could hammer out some pretty specific low-cost steps pretty quickly. But when we kind of talk about it in a large meeting like this, we have a bunch of good ideas, but it's not like we bring it to completion.
Right.
So I don't know how we would do that, who would be involved, how much Conservation Commission there would be. But that would be, I think, a way to move this forward.
Yeah, I think
And
you're right.
and I guess the reason I keep probing on this is because I think about the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee and what would we want to be communicating to the town writ large, and one of them is, we know there will be opportunities to go for grant funding, which is one of the reasons we asked to have this, special fund that we can work on. But in order for us to be able to get those opportunities to private road associations, we have to know who you are and where you are. We're trying to figure out how best to do this, and that's why we're asking for people to opt in. But then we do, it's a two-way communication thing that we're also trying to say, we don't have anything right now, but we're set up to do such things. We're looking for opportunities. These things could be big wins for you if you will work with us, but we gotta kind of know who you are. But that's why we're asking, because I think the really private road associations, I agree, there are gonna be some that are like, stay out, state, local government. I don't want you anywhere near what I'm doing. It's like, well, that's fine if you want to take on all of the costs of doing these things, but we're here to help. So anyway, that's.
Marianne, let me take this back to the sustainability plan for a minute. And that is in the old flood inundation mapping, it identified public roads that would be inundated at certain levels of sea level rise and private roads that
Right.
would be inundated. It seems to me that the focus in terms of the sustainability plan should be that when the town updates its look at what roads and other public facilities are subject to potential inundation, the first step probably should be to include private roads in that. Second, to share that information with property owners / road associations where those roads exist. And third, maybe to make them aware of the importance of having a recognized road association if they expect to be able to access any assistance to address those potential issues in the future. I do think the town needs to be careful, though, that it doesn't cross the line of doing things or leading people to believe that the town is gonna spend money to improve their private roads when, under the current legal structure, the town can't do that. But it seems to me, an activity to make property owners / road associations aware of what the implications of sea level rise could be on the road that serves them, and what they might need to do to be able to access assistance, I think fits in with the sustainability plan.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. I sort of forgot about the fact that we had also identified all the private roads 6 years ago when we first identified the public roads that would be.
I think if you go back, the town goes back through the exercise based upon
The new maps, yeah.
flood maps, and I would suggest with some future looking, what it means with increases of sea level rise, because essentially the FEMA maps, and as they've been amended by the town, are current condition maps that don't really take into account significant sea level rise.
Right.
But making that information as it applies to private roads available to people so they understand the magnitude of the risk that they face and what they might need to do to access any assistance that comes along. It seems to me that that's part of the town role in dealing with the implications of climate change.
Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. And I had forgotten about that piece, and we sent postcards to everybody on private and public roads in 2016 when we first started talking about sea level rise. So I still even have the list of the town, how to contact people on those.
There probably are a few more, but
Oh, I'm sure, but,
that's great.
but,
And it right off the bat narrows the range of the number of roads we're talking about, which is where I was sort of at. It's all roads or just some portion of roads? And
That's
some
true.
portion of
That's true.
roads,
I sort of-
Which ones to try to narrow down to some
Yeah.
workable entity.
So the question is where in this document to put creating this set of maps based on FEMA plus sea level rise? Because we're going to be drawing on that information for other decisions. And so
Well, strategy area E,
or
that's where we get into,
Yes,
getting into
okay,
the
it's in there,
updating the
yes.
maps. We might be able to tuck it in there.
well, it already is under prepare an updated flood impact map.
Right, but this is a different,
Right. And Marion has tucked it in on the outline under strategy E.
So number one,
yeah. The first one, prepare an updated flood
Right.
impact map. And it
because the
says right in there,
implications
public
of-
and private roads.
Yeah, because the implications of having that are top level kinds of things.
Yeah, and,
It could similarly be A3, because that's where we started talking
yeah,
about.
we can do it both places. Peter?
I think it could be multiple places.
So I would just remind us that, or I would say my private road, or the private road I, live on, probably it doesn't show up
Probably
on a
not
FEMA
showing.
map,
Right.
except for maybe my house. But there is a hill on it, and so the heavy rainfall can lead to washouts. We have a culvert problem on the part that's the hill. So if we just said the roads that are potentially in trouble are the ones that show up on the FEMA flood map, that, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
let's make it more general, where it's important to me more general.
You know, the state has the NRC, I forget whose map it is, that shows sea level rise on it.
Yep.
We just use that map again, and you'll pick up both private and public roads. And I believe the parcels are on that as well. Ben might have put that together when he was here, Mark? But I thought when I was on that map recently, which I find very,
Which map was that again?
I'm forgetting what it's, yeah, NRC, National Resource Council. I think it's their mapping.
NRCS, National Resource Conservation Service.
No, it's a private,
Okay.
And this is related to flooding, or it's related to?
it's just showing, damn, darn.
We'll dig it out. We'll dig it out.
Anyhow, that map, you would go on the state website now and look for sea level rise. That's the map that comes up.
Okay.
And it would allow you to see where, and you can do it with Google Maps as well, where you will have sea level rise if you have the right app added to it.
All I was saying that there are roads in Harpswell that are probably in danger of damage
From other reasons.
that won't show up on that map.
That's
Because
true.
they might be higher, but near
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah. But you might get it at the low point. That's what I'm thinking,
You
the low
probably
point.
get the majority of the issue.
I just texted my boss.
Marion, technically, the FEMA maps include flooding that results from all sources of water. And whether the kind of situation that Peter is describing is large enough to show up on their maps, I don't know. But maybe Matt can look at those maps and see if any of those inland freshwater situations, sort of the storm-related flooding.
Right.
The kind of thing that Connecticut and Vermont have been dealing with the last couple of days. Those situations, if they're large enough, show up on the FEMA maps.
Yeah, we can check there.
But even if they don't, identifying both in terms of public roads And in terms of private roads, what roads are at risk as a result of all of the implications of climate change is probably the baseline starting point that somebody, I don't remember who it was, said, that is needed to make, sound decisions about what should do and to focus attention and resources on those areas. And that kind of incorporates the whole idea of culverts under town roads and issues with culverts on private roads and,
So basically, we want with,
I just texted my boss, who has been the president of the main listings system, and asked him if there's any way that MLS can provide a list for us of homes that were sold where there was an association. It's probably only going to be for homeowners, which could include road maintenance, especially in a condominium situation. But I'm not optimistic that we can get that kind of information, but it might help give
Yeah,
us some
we'll
concept.
see how it comes
If
out.
they can break it out by
Yeah.
towns.
yeah,
And that would be the hardest thing.
that would be
If-
interesting, yeah.
On the MLS listing sheets, there is a requirement to disclose the homeowners
Right.
association fees. But again, that's not necessarily for a road association.
That's true.
So, but I'll see what he says.
Marianne,
Yes?
I'm the clock watcher here.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same way.
We're still on the first half of the first page.
I know, that's not a good idea.
And I'm gonna say that maybe, Peter's suggestion, is that the group decides if this is something, that should be addressed, and then a few people go away and put the details together. Matt has been sitting there quietly, and I don't know exactly what his workload is at this point, but he might be available, to help that group to work through things, but I'll let him speak for himself.
I saw a thumbs up right in the corner of my eye.
Is that delusional or real?
And was it a thumb?
That sounds great. Thanks, Abby. Take care. Yeah, I think we do have to move along. And Matt, if you're willing to work with a few people.
Yep.
And Peter,
Sure.
yeah, I would probably like to let you know what we have so far. And then you can go from there.
Sure. I'm happy to join.
And who else?
Tim?
Tim, okay. Long as we
need
don't,
anyone from Conservation Commission to cross-pollinate? You?
or Deirdre, who's not here today. By the way, Deirdre's been in the hospital and she's getting better,
Oh, dear.
and she's hoping to be back soon, but and she's sort of been the point person on roads on our committee.
So the action is Matt is going to set something up for us to talk with him to get this kicked off, and we can move on to the next half of the
Yeah.
first page.
Yeah, let's do that.
And maybe this.
So this is specifically with respect to road associations?
No, I think it's specifically to a mapping of where to
Let's just find the private roads, figure out what we're going to do about it.
Okay.
find and map where flooding will occur based on the new flood maps. So it's kind of a combination of two things.
I would include the issue of, the adequacy of drainage in an extreme storm situation, relative to town roads.
Right.
I don't know whether there are any problems. I do know that, Rod, for instance, has worked with the state to try and do some things with some of the culverts on 123. And that's really to address kind of normal storm drainage issues. my guess is that there's probably some issues with culverts under town roads, and Ron might be a good source to
Mm-hmm.
at least be able to start to identify where there could be problem areas.
Good point. Okay, should we move on to the next item?
If I could just say one thing.
Ron is Ron Ponziani, the road commissioner.
Okay, Matt, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, if you guys want to get together and talk about this via email, if you could just email me, because I don't know anybody's email yet.
Oh,
And
yeah,
also will not remember anybody's name, so.
What's your email?
It's, what is my email?
Is it planner or
It's
something?
planner.
It's planner@town.harpswell.me.us. It's the same one that Mark previously had.
That's Mark's email.
It is, yeah.
That's
Not
right,
anymore.
not anymore.
Mark, I think it's a Gmail one now.
All right,
Yeah.
we do have to move along. But let's get into strategy B. Now, those items, the first one, of course, is the one that's in process, and Howie, I'm going to look at you on a lot of these. So basically, if you've had a chance to read, these are the ones that Mark popped in, and it was to complete the town office energy improvements, which are in process, I believe. And then a new one would be to undertake energy audits and improvements on other town buildings. That is something new. And I'm not sure how much,
Marianne, that one about other buildings is in the current sustainability.
right, it is, yeah,
plan.
it is.
And to me, I think the question is, in a way, does that get kept in? And I don't know enough about what's happening with the fire station planning project and whether the existing EMS building will continue to be used and what the status of that is. And I'm never clear about who's responsible for what at the EV station building, and who's responsible for that. I think the recycling center is being addressed, but I'm not sure of that. I just think as part of the sustainability plan, looking at those, whether there are improvements that could reduce the carbon footprint of the other municipal buildings is something that should be kept in the sustainability plan.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it would be probably the Energy and Technology Committee's time to talk about that and make a decision on that. Right now, I don't know that we're in a position to take it out. It's in as a lower priority.
Would it be not undertake but assess need for?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because if we don't need it, we don't need it.
We don't need it, okay. So assess the need for energy audits and improvements to other town meetings. We can leave that in and move right along, maybe? And we don't have to answer who's going to do it right now. Which gets us over to strategy C. I have C2 because it's in process. Well, it's not in process. It was included in the 3 to 5 year or the 5 to 10 year section of the current sustainability plan. And that was to explore a town solar array. And this is all spelled out here. But basically, one of the things that Mark brought up, I think, is to drop the concept that it should be on a specific piece of town property and widen it to town-owned or town-purchased property.
I think that's a good move.
Pardon me?
I think that's a good move.
Yeah.
Let me also just say, in the blue section there on the second line, it says, in a sense, the town owns a small portion of a larger solar array. That's not at all,
True?
no.
Okay.
The town is, at best, renting a section of somebody else's solar array, but gets the energy generated by that portion of it.
Okay,
But really, we're just buying the electricity from a solar farm.
okay. So basically, the town uses, we could say, should we say here rather than using solar energy through participation, we are buying energy through participation, or just leave it?
Well, I'm just saying that second sentence is just not.
Okay,
Get
so
rid of
we
it,
can
get
just
rid
take
of
it
the
out.
second sentence.
Just take
Yeah.
it out. All right, so, and I think,
Yeah, and Mary Ann and Howie, my sense of some of the comments that Howie has made about solar, to meet the town's electrical needs, I may have misunderstood, or I may have understood, but it's really this question of, the town is involved, essentially with using, solar generated electricity to meet the town's electric needs, and is developing a town solar array a good financial proposition for the town. And, I mean, I think that's kind of a threshold question. And if the answer is yes, there could be long-term benefits from developing a town solar array, then you look seriously at it. If there's not, unless the town wants to make a, sort of a political statement that we're going to use solar energy on our own rather than from somebody else's array, then that's another issue. But then Howie, I don't know how you feel about that, but I've sort of got that sense from some of your comments in the past.
Well, actually, a good reason to rush this meeting along is that the Energy and Technology Committee is meeting at 6 o'clock here.
Right.
And this is part of what, this is connected with some of the stuff that we'll be talking about. So I could bring that up at tonight's meeting, and see what direction, if anybody wants to go in a different direction on that. What it comes down to is, an upfront expense would mean that it has two advantages to actually own the array on our own, and that is, after recouping the cost of it, it will continue to generate power for a long time after it takes to recoup it. And the other thing is that the electricity rates seem to keep going up, and so the time to recoup it gets shorter and shorter every time there's a rate increase. So, but, the current arrangement is simply, we pay we get a discount off of CMP's rate, and that's it, period. CMP's rate goes up, our prices for the credits go up,
no, yeah.
so.
Okay, well, maybe we should just leave that at that.
Howie's working on it.
He's working on it. And it's in a position that we can still run it through the plan as we update it without too much change. Okay, all right. Let's move on to strategy D. Grow jobs and protect natural resource industries. In the sustainability plan, we have two items listed, I believe. Well, the first D1 is adopt policies that enable, support, or incentivize local food production and consumption. And we added, at the time we wrote this, we added include the ability to fish and harvest seafood commercially as part of the above policy. At that time, I don't know that there was much discussion about the fishing industry.
Not, no, the discussion was about the fact that D2 seems to contradict in some ways.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And in terms of the fishing industry,
Why don't we do this? Mose, you talked with your committee about this. Why don't you report back? I mean, why don't we have you
well, I
discuss?
think that's part of what Matt Gilly wants to talk to us
Exactly,
about also.
exactly.
So if we just wait until he comes and talks to us next month, we'll catch all of that.
Okay.
And also the offshore wind production issues that the fishing community is concerned about.
Correct.
So,
Now, just to bring the committee up to date a little bit, Matt had wanted to come to today's meeting to talk about offshore wind and some of the inconsistency he sees with our plan. I felt that it's going to be a discussion that takes quite a bit of time of the meeting, and that we would not have time to introduce that new thought into our process. In speaking with him, Mose conveyed to him, through me, that I would prefer to wait till the next meeting where we could devote that as an agenda item and talk about. However, in the meantime, I got to thinking a little bit about how we were dealing with road associations, and a conversation I had with Matt yesterday for that, because of the situation of not being able to spend money on private businesses, that does leave us does put us in a position to do other things that can support the fishing industry that are not monetary, similar to what we're talking about on the road associations, of how we're dealing with private property owners.
When you say Matt, you mean?
I'm sorry, Matt Gilly.
Thank
I got to be careful here.
So quick question, I won't be here for the September 3rd meeting, I'll be someplace else far away from electrons.
Yay.
I know, exactly. Is, offshore wind is controversial, I get it. Is it a town issue at all?
I don't know.
very much so.
But how so?
I don't even want to get into it in great detail, but there are a lot of things about the offshore wind generation that we never read about in the newspapers. It's going to potentially create some real problems for all the fishing industry.
I agree with that, but
And
is there anything
so-
the town can,
Well, there's a possibility, for instance, that the power lines that bring the power in from the farm would have to go through Harpswell to get to Wyman Station in Yarmouth. That would create some issues with the fishermen, especially the draggers, where, you know, the waters are now wide open, and they know where the ledges and the rocks and things are, but they'd have to deal with something like that in the meantime. There's a great deal of heat generated when when the electricity is transferred through the lines, and that creates some concerns for them in terms of damage it does to the ecosystem.
but in particular, landing of the power lines may touch Harpswell, and that would
Maybe
be.
because
kind of a
we don't
Harpswell
know
issue.
where the track for the new cabling is going to go. They haven't released that information. So it's speculation, but if it goes to the Wyman station from somewhere offshore, Harpswell could well be in direct line for that, which would present a problem for our fishermen and anybody else who fishes the waters between here and wherever the farm is. So there's a number of things that Matt wants to bring up that I think we need to know.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it has not been publicized to any extent. Everybody just thinks that, you know, going offshore, nobody can see them. They're going to produce all kinds of electricity and everybody benefits.
Is this in reference to the research project, or is there a commercial project planned?
No, it's just concerned with what's being proposed right now to put the floating farm offshore, and which could, if it works successfully, could then, of course, expand to more and more of it.
That's why I feel that this topic is going to take a meeting to discuss.
This really almost sounds like a panel, where you'd have presentation of different points of view. It's very controversial.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that, I don't know. I mean, he's gonna, anybody can come and present their opinion, but are we gonna have the other opinion as well?
That's a good point.
I also won't be here on September 3rd. I'll be sitting at the gate at Logan Airport waiting for my flight about the time this meeting is happening.
Okay.
And the following Tuesday, I'll be sitting at a gate on the way back.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that my sense was, we have this report that we have to take care of and get into the state by September 15th. The issue that is going to be brought up is not going to be one that we can solve. Not to say that it shouldn't be discussed, but we can have Matt come to the number of the people that I think are very interested in the subject are not going to be at this meeting on the 3rd. My suggestion to Matt yesterday when I spoke with him was to, which I put in here basically, I put in what the select board did to adopt the set of making the town a working waterfront community. And then I explained to him that we could work with the fishing and harvesting to support and provide information to enable them to prepare for their infrastructure to stay resilient. I did not get into the discussion about various types of renewable energy, because wind's one, solar's one, tidal is another, and our new planner has mentioned 2 or 3 more that are on the horizon. And maybe that would be best kept for a discussion or a devotion to a panel discussion on the various types of renewable energy there is.
I mean, I don't see necessarily anything in direct conflict. We aren't saying the town should go out and support offshore wind. I think it's what Peter's saying. I'm not sure it's not with this current document. I mean, it'd be interesting, let's hear what Matt says, but I don't think anything he says is directly related to what we're working out in this document.
Right.
For example, like solar arrays are, but as far as renewable, that's very relevant to a local town issue. But I don't think there's going to be a direct conflict unless I'm missing something with what we're drafting here.
Sustainability plan isn't going to propose Harpswell building and
Offshore, exactly, yeah.
Right.
So I think it's a Harpswell issue, especially if it touches Harpswell. And like was said, we can listen to anything, and that makes a lot of sense. But it's a select board issue if it's anything. It's a broader than.
And if at all an issue, it's probably a decade down the road.
at best.
Mose?
I think
Closest.
it's not, Matt is not proposing that we do anything except to clarify our goals here. He
I don't
got the sense that we didn't really understand what that wording meant in terms of natural resource support and clean energy because of the downfalls, the downside of offshore power.
Which wording?
The wording on the
You-
second bullet point in D2, D1, D2.
With the fishing and harvesting.
Establish initiatives for clean energy industry or businesses to locate in the
Yep.
community?
What? Where?
D2 in
This isn't in this one, it's just in,
It's in the sustainability plan.
okay.
D1 says, adopt policies that enable, support, or incentivize local food production and consumption, including community gardens. We added to the existing plan, include the ability to fish and harvest seafood commercially as part of the above policy to support the fishing industry. We then added also support programs to increase access for commercial seafood harvesters to the ocean. And I think then under D2, it was establish incentives for clean energy industries or businesses to locate in the community. I'm sorry, I don't see that as being in
I
conflict.
think when he's, and I don't want to put words in Matt's mouth, because I had never even been aware of this, of the potential conflict. He's concerned that we're going to be, I believe, promoting something that may not be as beneficial to the fishing community as everybody seems to think that it will be.
Well, that's,
That they will suffer where maybe the town as a whole will be improved because of the clean energy, but the fishing industry may get wiped out because of it. There's something catastrophic.
and I also explained to him that these D1, DD, those were, I explained the whole process of how we got to where we are today, and how the state had, basically, we did a vulnerability plan with the state. They had sent down questions that we addressed. So this, as I recall, was something that was in the original vulnerability test that we did. We then took that to, we then took it to the next level and said to incentivize clean energy carbon sequestration by growing kelp, for example. So we were taking it to the natural resource level. I think, and when I explained that to Matt, he didn't kind of, he didn't get that sense.
Two things. First of all, I misread the calendar. I will not be here, but I will not be sitting at a gate. I might actually be able to be on the big screen
Okay,
here.
all right, well, we
on
might
the
have to
3rd.
do it.
But I also want to say that I think this is more something that I think he should take to the select board to see if they want to get involved, and if they do, assign it to whatever committee they think is appropriate to hear more about it, not to just come to the committee directly.
Okay.
So,
Nancy, you wanted to say something too?
Yeah, I want to go back to the original plan. I think that D2, establish incentives for clean energy industry or businesses to locate in the community, had to do with getting them to come and have office space here and run their business out of Harpswell.
So it says
That's
like a
my-
solar installation company.
That's my recollection, was that it was to try to get investment in businesses located in Harpswell, not necessarily doing offshore wind, but like the kelp industry, for instance.
Right, right.
I think that's an example where over at Mitchell Field, there was the kelp trial business and the baby oyster business was going
Right.
on. So I think we were thinking about businesses being located here, not necessarily putting up wind vanes and so on.
Well, I think that probably what's got Matt going on this, and I think it, as I said a few minutes ago, we just would clarify and change the wording
Yeah.
in such a way
Yeah.
that it is more specific as to what you're saying, as opposed to being such a broad umbrella
Right.
comment that we support this, that, and the other, but maybe we shouldn't be supporting this or the other. That's all. And I don't think it should become across as we are opposing and supporting something that is gonna do potential harm to an industry because we don't know all the facts.
I appreciate the discussion, because I was looking at I wasn't looking at the original plan. Now I understand why it raised concern. And I think rewording certainly should be done at the minimum, because I don't think anybody's objecting to helping the working waterfront.
The strategy areas grow jobs and protect natural resource industries. That was the strategy that we were working with, and we were trying to bring in specific thing that Harpswell could do to meet that goal. So for today, we have to just decide. I think Matt seemed to be okay. I mean, he was firstly agreeable to what I suggested and put in here yesterday. We're not going to have that many people at the next meeting. I hear a suggestion of, rather than talking to us as a member of the Harbor and Waterfront Committee, I have to put that in because he is, we would rather not have him come to the meeting. or have him come to the meeting, but really then direct him to the selectmen to go.
If there are other options, sound other options, like the ones that Matt James has in mind, and various other alternative forms of energy, I think one of our jobs could be to invite the public to learn about all of those things,
Right.
including Matt Gillies' perspective on it. I mean, again, we have these public forums, and I think that would be an informational forum about alternative energy is in our purview.
Definitely.
And I could see having that be a goal down the road. I think getting some guidance from the select board makes sense. Not in that. I mean, we could say,
Right.
yes, this is something
Right.
we think we should be doing with the community. And I could see Matt's perspective being a part of that. And I don't know who else would be here, but
Yeah.
if there are lots of options, let's learn about the options. As a community, let's learn about the
Yeah,
options.
yeah, and we're talking about clean energy. It doesn't have to be only solar. Matt, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. Strategy area C, reduce emissions through clean energy innovation. I think one of the things that Matt Gillies is concerned about is that for him, emissions are not what he's talking about. He's talking about the other side effects of some of these clean energy sources directly on wildlife that, start impacting the environment immediately upon putting them in, or in some cases, even before they're put in, through survey or through other means of exploration to find a site. Those kind of things, I think, in my brief amount of time talking to him, are of importance and have a big impact on his livelihood and a lot of people's livelihood in this town. I think there are a lot of options, but I don't know if I don't think I know yet what Harpswell's opinion is fully on what kind of energy sources we'd like to have here, or if we'd like to be producing anything at all. So that's something that I'll have to learn more
Right,
about as we
right.
go through. But I do think that it would be a good idea to kind of hear a little bit about the impacts that certain energy sources have on the environment beyond just CO2 emissions and things like that.
So I recall that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a request was made to the select board, that the select board write a letter to the state essentially against offshore wind. And I think the select board decided unanimously to not send that letter.
It was actually a request to support a bill that banned all research on offshore wind.
Right, thank you, Howie.
Would it make sense, and maybe Nancy has the wording, to reword D2 so that it's clearer what it means?
I don't,
I don't know that it's not that unclear under the strategy
How-
area of grow jobs and
unclear
protect
is that?
natural resources.
But was that the trigger for the concern?
I'm sure what triggered him.
I think what triggered it is he looked at this, and they're listed
But
D1, and I don't know what triggered it, but he was going through the sustainability. We had a meeting on Tuesday night with the comp plan task force, and this came up.
Oh, okay,
Clean energy in general came up.
okay.
And as a result, Matt started to read the sustainability plan.
Great.
And I think he zeroed on, when he read this, it just didn't sit well. I don't know that I don't know how you would make it look more clear,
Okay.
I guess, and,
the only way I can suggest is what Nancy is proposing was that maybe make it clearer that we're talking about supporting businesses that would support the fishing industry and whatever, as to come into town and establish their workforce. I don't know, I don't know, you can wordsmith things to death, and get nowhere. But I do agree with Valerie too, that this is not our decision to make. Matt just wanted to inform people here that if you weren't aware of some of the downsides to offshore wind, that they are significant,
I'm sure.
and that
I'm
it
sure
could
there are.
very adversely affect our fishing, working waterfront.
Right,
So the sustainability plan gets updated every year or 2 years?
every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Plenty of time to address that kind of thing down the road, in my
I
opinion.
think, as a plan going forward, I think it makes sense for us to learn more about other types of sustainable energy. The state has chosen electric and solar because that's their goal right now, to meet.
Fairly mature technology relatively.
Yeah, yeah. So, and they've committed to a certain amount of less greenhouse gas by 2050. And this is the way that there is the possibility to do it through electricity right now and solar. I think going forward, we're going to find there's other ways as well. And it would be helpful, I think, to learn about many of those. So maybe
Well,
that.
electricity doesn't just mean solar either.
No, exactly.
You know, in addition to wind, there's hydro.
There's hydro, there's tidal, there's a lot of different types.
And there's nuclear, no carbon dioxide from
That's right,
nuclear.
that's right.
No
So,
nuclear
but-
plant on Mitchell Field.
I think it-
But my point is that that's why they're stressing the electricity, is that you can get it from different sources. And, and the distribution facilities are in place already. We
Already.
have an electric grid, so.
yeah, yeah.
It is a mature technology, and, that's what, I think that's the reason that the state's pursuing that, is that it's not just solar, it's from a number of sources.
Right.
And, but having that in place as people using the electricity in place of fossil fuels is the goal.
Yeah.
So would it be helpful to have something, or maybe it's already here, that says, I don't know, continue to explore clean energy in a general way? Or is that really what it says already?
It probably doesn't belong here, it probably belongs someplace else, but yeah.
So the sustainability plan is about what we can do to help Maine and to help our town and our region, right?
Yeah.
So, what I guess I would say are, what are the proactive things that we can, how can we word this to underline Nancy's point of what are the proactive things that we are proposing to do that will impact the town?
In discussing this.
And we are not proposing that there would be any advantage to the town to be a landing spot or we're agnostic about it. But in my personal opinion, that's also 10 years in the future at minimum. So I think, let's just say, let's go back to the scope of the sustainability plan. It's what we can do to address these kind of issues in front of us each year by year. And what can we do tangibly? Like attract industries that employ a few people here that work on this, for example. And I think that was the point you were making.
Perhaps your earlier comment was what we should do at this point is not make any changes to it until the next time around. And in the meantime, explore some of the other options and learn more about the other opportunities of generation.
We're a
I
wise
mean,
man.
I for one, am particularly interested in tidal generation. I think that's got tremendous potential if we get the turbines developed correctly.
And it's so ironic because there were tidal mills here in the 19th
yeah,
century,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's
But
Harpswell.
they were
Did you work on
analogs, so
those,
to speak, but-
Lowe's?
But the other thing about, I mean, if they're gonna be generating electricity.
No, the company
same as
PL&J
offshore
did.
wind, it's still gonna be PC.
The company PL&J did.
PL&J.
There's no easy answer, but I do think we need to be proactive and
I like
support
that.
people.
The PL&J Tidal Mill Company Incorporated.
Let me second Peter's comment from a minute ago. and encourage you to focus on activities that the town, first the town government, and second the community as a whole, can undertake to do two things. One, reduce the carbon footprint of the town government and the community as a whole. And second, to prepare the town and the community as a whole for the consequences of climate change. And I think the headline on this is the Community Action Plan, and the sustainability plan, this portion of it is intended to say, here's what the town intends to do in the next 3 to 5 years, I think this section says, to move toward those two objectives. And so I think, if there's not something that the town is proposing to do as an action, then it's probably not necessary to agonize over it or to put something in the plan just to have something there.
Okay. What did I miss?
Oh, yeah, stop things.
All right, we got to move on. So where are we? I missed the,
We didn't take any kind of consensus, but I think we just leave D alone.
okay,
Hey, Long, we got at least 3 more revs before it would have any potential impact.
okay, so,
And
okay.
just continue to explore the other options that are
Okay.
available.
So for the plan, we just leave it the way it is for now, which is good. Are we still going to have Matt on next meeting?
If you'd like.
I think it's fine if he's
I
planning.
think it's good. I
let's
mean,
hear what he
I'm
says, so.
committed to it, I think which is fine.
Well, and it's part of exploring.
Yeah, it's part of
options.
exploring options.
I
so.
think perhaps we want to put in there, begin exploring options. I think we need to educate ourselves.
That's
Or-
true.
Or the public need, and we
So-
being Harpswell's.
But that wouldn't be
Collectively.
under growing jobs or natural resources. That'd be
No,
someplace
no,
else.
that would be an offshoot, but I think it is important for us to begin exploring other options.
Mary Ann, just a thought, I know we're running low on time, a lot more to cover. Should, we have another meeting before this has to be resubmitted to the state, right? I know that
We have one more meeting.
one more meeting. Do we want to just take this, add notes, and then have a much more condensed at our September meeting?
Well, we can, except the problem is, I figured we were going to have to finalize this anyhow. We've got to put it all together and have it ready. We have to do a new plan. Basically, we're in a position to do it.
Right.
And then having Matt there would be time to have him.
Based on today.
Yeah, not based on today.
And I know that, these type of conversations become very, very lengthy. And I hate to cut people off
Yeah.
if they've come in to do it. So we have some options. We can, for today, it's 5:45 too. We normally do an hour and a half. We have E, and we aren't left here. We have this to work with.
E,
I-
we've already talked about.
We've already
Some.
talked about E. J, I'd like to take time just to do strategy area F with you, because you had questions and you had some suggestions, and maybe we could talk about that really quickly. There's a lot of orange here, but it's not really that much.
Can I just say I'm really glad we don't have a strategy J, or I'd get really confused.
We could do one.
Well,
Suppose we ask Matt to come in October instead of September, so we can just devote
Yeah.
that whole
seems-
meeting to wrapping this thing up.
And they might
Matt's
have better
coming as-
attendance as well.
And Matt's presentation is not time limited. I mean, it's a
No,
broader
no, I mean,
discussion.
he just wants to explain some other details about this that never get publicized.
And in respect to Matt's concern, let's make it clear that we're rewording that section so that it addresses the things we can do in the scope of the plan. And hopefully, I guess my opinion would be, hopefully it reduces the anxiety that we're putting up a big, welcome energy power line offshore wind landing, sign. That we're not doing that in this plan.
We can't even get houses on Mitchell Field. How would we do that?
The LNG redux.
Anyhow,
Really,
Except bigger
big
money.
issue.
okay. Does that sound like a plan?
I think so.
Okay.
Shall I convey that to him, or you want to?
Why don't I compare it to him and you? I'll send it to both of you,
Okay.
or to him and copy everybody, which I plan to
Right.
do
So
anyhow.
the October meeting would be October 1st?
Yes. Who's not going to be here?
The airport,
Gate, you gonna be
No,
at that
I'll be
night?
here.
Who else won't be here? Anyhow, all right. Okay, so, other than that, we just have the F, and the G is pretty much done.
And we just lost Mark.
Oh,
oh, but we could see ourselves.
I wonder why, and I don't know what exactly to do about that.
We can see some of ourselves.
Let me call him. So anyhow, maybe he just had to, I don't know.
Maybe he got bored.
It might only be a 2-hour meeting, or an hour and a half
No,
meeting.
the limit is 40 minutes on the limited ones.
I don't know what the town has.
Okay.
Anyhow,
F,
can set up the next meeting. So, Jay, can you,
Set until 5:45.
it's 5:45 now.
Yeah, he's been booted.
He got booted off.
Okay.
So, can we just start the next meeting with him?
If things do into account.
I don't know, I'm going to let that be with you, Matt, because I'm going to finish this meeting, and I don't know.
It's a possibility that MLS can give us some breakdowns of
Yeah,
associations. I'm going to
that'd
talk
be,
to somebody else that.
that'd be good.
And see
Yeah,
what they can
yeah.
give us.
Great news.
Jay? You're on.
Section F?
I'm on?
Yeah.
Okay.
hang on.
Just the building healthy and resilient communities.
I can end this meeting and start the next one.
Yeah.
It goes until 7:45. I don't know how late the energy technology usually goes till, but,
I'm going to try real hard not to make it last that long.
okay. I'll do that.
Got a gate to get to.
They could go to 8, just to be sure. Okay, Jay, I'm sorry.
Well, the first thing, advertise and promote Code Red. Code Red hasn't disappeared, which I had written, but it hasn't. And I listed a bunch of others. I don't know if we
Recording in progress.
want to advertise all of them. I just thought. it's-
Code Red is no longer, is that what you're
No,
saying?
it is still.
Oh, it is
there,
still.
But it's a private company.
Why don't
There's
you turn
also
on
a
the,
state
video?
program, and the town has a program. So maybe we just focus on the town program, which is the mass communication, and they send out a list.
Yeah, why don't we focus on the town, and we could always, yeah.
Mary,
Bas-
do you know what a microphone is supposed to do?
Sure.
I'm sorry?
Makes sense,
Is it supposed to
because
be-
they're pushing it to get all kinds of information out.
Right.
It said as,
Whatever it said at, keep.
okay.
I'm not sure what we ended up with, but whatever it was, keep. So basically, from what I heard Mark saying, we're dealing with what our town can do, so maybe we should just stick with the Code Red, and we could always,
Well, not
No.
Code Red, mass communication,
mass
which
communication.
is in here,
Gotcha.
number 3 in the red.
Number 3, which is Harpswell, Maine Government Mass Notification. So we're going to stick with that one.
Backing up to number 1, under F, there's a big push on anti-ageism, and older adult is the preferred term now,
Over senior
or elder, or,
or older?
yeah.
Aged and infirm, can't
Yeah.
say that anymore either.
So just suggesting we use older adult.
Weak, tired.
I was asking why it's limited to community of workers as opposed to residents.
I think we were trying to address working, we were talking about older adults or residents. But then what about the rest of the people who are residents
okay. Gotcha.
that are in need of help, like, without you really being, we chose the word working people.
I think there's an
That doesn't
and
cover
needed.
retirees, except some of us.
Yeah, and this is for emergency and it has to do with emergency service and people who are not in a position to have that in place for themselves. So that,
So just build on the community's assessment of Harpswell's older adults by, that's all then.
older adults. And, wasn't it and? Older adults and community of workers or community, workers in the community? Does that make more sense?
If you just put older adults instead of seniors.
Oh, yeah. But we want to include the people who are not seniors and need,
Well, the way, I think the way it's worded, that's fine.
okay,
It
okay,
just needs to older adults.
okay.
Um,
As opposed to about the-
Should I contact Mark and tell him to turn us back on?
You could try.
I could try. But I don't have my phone here. It's in the room. Anyhow, let's just finish up here.
And then F3, I'm just suggesting not using code red,
Yeah,
but using mass communication.
mass communications instead, which sounds good.
Yep.
I didn't know if we wanted to,
I'm not sure.
the next is about
Pop up with the wait list, but
infrastructure.
if he needs to be, I don't know.
This
I
is-
think it's really difficult because it doesn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had said we're doing, do we want to continue to work with town fire administrator and fire departments to educate residents of risk mitigation and prevention strategies, including tip materials, Harpswell TV? I don't know, do we need any? Maybe we don't need any of that.
I don't know. This is, so let's see, continue work with the town fire administrator and fire to educate residents. Do we need to have that in there, or should just leave it to the fire and rescue to do that?
Okay. Well, the same thing then with 3, the reflective sign program is the fire department, so they're doing it.
Well, that might be,
Educate people about the kinds of programs that are out there.
I'm getting confused of what we have and what we're adding. Maybe this isn't as quick as I thought it would be.
Found that that was the least tended.
We basically took what was given to us,
First part, which was usually a chair.
and
Okay. And they didn't state the information side.
Yeah.
Can't leave it to water or make them drink.
I think the words resilient communities here provides a different context than climate resilient
right,
communities.
oh, definitely.
And I think that's what's confusing me about this.
Mhm.
I have always thought that our mission was to build climate resilience as opposed to generic resilience because we have an aging population.
Well, part of this that I've always had a problem with since we've been doing this is they tucked in this piece about social vulnerability,
Right.
which is
Wants to
so,
be admitted.
he's asking to be admitted?
That's
No,
Howard.
we're making sure that it would let us know if he was.
Oh, God.
Well.
Kind
so-
of rude of him
And
to
I'm-
join in so early.
And I'm not opposed to addressing general social vulnerability, I just don't know how that fits into this.
What does, I thought it did. Does it not? I don't know.
It does because there are programs that are coming through for social vulnerability. Through resiliency and sustainability. I think that the state plan addresses this.
Okay.
It's just how do we address it?
It just seems, it seems to me like we need to be clear if others are doing this work, or what are we doing? If we are supporting others, how are we supporting them? Are we supporting them because we are raising awareness that these services are available? And I just think that, for me, when I read through it, I just thought, okay, I just need to know, what is it that we do? What is our activity?
Right.
And our very specific activity is not always clear here, and though sometimes it is, but if we continue to work with them, I don't know, I was like, okay, well, what are we continuing? Maybe if we just clarified what it is we're actually doing, but it seems to me the majority of what we're doing is raising awareness that these other things exist. Or if it's more than that, well, then what is it? And I'm just ignorant about what those things are.
No, I
but-
think it is. I think it is, in my mind, it is about raising awareness. The town supports, for example, Harpswell Aging at Home,
Yeah.
and provides space on the website, that kind of thing. So that's already happening, so continue, or does it need to be said at all?
So I think what might motivate this, to some extent, is the idea that resilience for a community incorporates a sense of community. So if I know that my neighbor is at risk because she's older and just had surgery, I'm looking out for her a little bit more. And maybe I know about a program at Harpswell Aging at Home that might be helpful for her. If I'm alone in my house, and I don't have a network of people to communicate with, first of all, I don't age as well. It's just not emotionally healthy. But second of all, I can't help people and people can't help me. And I think that shows up in emergencies, like this road is flooded, we're not gonna be, like, I better go see, Mary Lou, and is she gonna be okay, and what do I need to do for her? And I'm not gonna do that if I don't know my neighbors, or I don't know what programs are available. So that's how I think it motivates close to resilience, but then how it ties to these specific things isn't anything that we do, right? It's just sort of this coin
And
that
I
goes in.
just got to second that, because I think it actually addresses your issue.
It does, it
And
does.
it specifically addresses it.
If there's a tight network and sense of community, then in a climate event, in a storm or something, then that comes into play. That's the connection that I needed. Yes.
So how do you say it?
Well,
So I just said, resilience means having a network of people who will help each other. It shows up in emergencies, and thus, and those emergencies might be climate events. They might be storms, they might be power outages, or so on. So that's where I think we marry the idea of social vulnerability, general resilience in the community. It comes into play every time there's a tree down across someone's driveway. Thank
And-
you. That's what I needed to see.
And just to say, one of the first times this became a real issue in relationship to, specifically to climate, was in a heat wave in Chicago about 8 years ago, when the study said, how is it that some places many older people died, and in some places they didn't? And the single most important thing was the social connectedness of that community. So it emerged as a thing where this is, it wasn't clear what the relationship is. But I think that's part of the confusion. I think we need to specify.
And we can be more.
Say promote what you just said, promote.
Social connectedness.
Social connection and cohesiveness, which helps in the event of climate extremes, but it's really emerged in heat-related issues.
Which is obviously important now here.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock. Howie's meeting is starting. Where are all your friends?
I'm watching people drive into the parking lot.
Okay. We do have to,
I think that That covers it, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to get more specific.
And maybe, yeah, let's.
A little bit of wordsmithing on that would clarify things a lot.
I
I
think,
think that, I think this
Can you work on that,
conversation's been really
Nancy?
important.
or can you guys work on that?
Should it say the words with social vulnerability in there somewhere?
Possibly,
Yeah.
If you define it,
Good.
just define it.
define it, yeah.
Just,
Define social, just put it in a definition.
Yeah, okay, so it's 6 o'clock. Howie's got to start another meeting, so he can get out by the time the thing falls off again. Let's stop here for tonight. We'll put together what we have. At our next meeting, we'll wind it up. I'll get a message back out to Matt and copy the group about
do you know what the date of
our
the
first
meeting is?
meeting in October.
The date of it?
And
September 3rd. You're looking
tell
for
him of what
September
we've
date?
added. Come on in,
Okay.
we're done, we're just about done. And so for tonight, and then we can finish up, if anybody goes through this and reads it and wants to add things, please send them through. Nancy, what?
No,
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
no, I'm just folding things up.
Okay. With that, we will adjourn at 5:59. Thank you all.
All right, thanks.